Alrighty. Is everyone ready? Okay. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, good. Welcome to the world of intercollegiate policy debate. After a century of existence, debate has tailored itself to the circulation of our scholarship. By pairing two students against two from another university, the academic activity radiates competitive drive. Our research was meant to highlight and indict the practices of those before us as we are tasked with responding to a limited topic. The hour-and-a-half-long sessions repeated weekly as debaters battled it out to be crowned the best academic, and our sport is like none other, requiring hours of labor sitting behind a screen, typing, and the late nights and the early mornings generate our success, as every argument needs at least 10 responses prepared. This traditionalist model of debate as a plan B plan fight to solve nuclear war favors rich-white ideals when crafting arguments that forecloses the idea of lived experience, framing discussions around these complex policies. And yet, in 2000, Louisville University changed the game, bringing black styles of the oration to demand traditional styles adapt and reconcile their violent ways. And in doing so, the Louisville branch began a cultural shift in debate, where liberal realities were invited to the table and consequentialist ethics were inherently questionable and up for debate. And this made debate a space to generate subjectivity, craft perceptions of the world for rigorous deliberation. And yet, the infusion of technology has only made the game harder, demanding the fastest computer, the slickest mouse. And many have argued that technology simply makes our debates worse, saying they create bad evidence, bad scholarship, bad practices, bad subjects. But when the idea of bad practices are written by the white academics, and bad practices are what needed to happen, because bad scholarship is only bad because the power it has when the scholarship generates subjectivity, we must be opening the challenge to debate white psyche. And yet, having access to more resources, smaller programs were able to blend the styles of Louisville's performance and newly granted technology affordance to create winning strategies based off of lived realities, winning both national championships by utilizing debate for their ideals. Using music, poetry, special effects, and many more, black debaters paved the path that debate exists on today, asserting valued arguments once dismissed by counting ballots. Dr. Kerr articulates this through Obama's State of the Union address, where digital imagery was used to tailor specific experiences to a variety of audiences across the country using state-of-the-art streaming service. Technology acts as a blessing and a curse, making the risk of infiltration by the right even higher and higher with every round that is recorded. And yet, in 2019, in November, two right-wing high schoolers went viral after they coordinated their teammates to record a round in which they lost for leading white supremacist authors. They later posted the video to Reddit, to YouTube, and Twitter, all in an attempt to reach out to Jordan Peterson so he could see what his scholarship can incite. And as the issue persists, one of the right-wing students graduated and went to Wayne State following the most prolific black debater only so that he could record a surveillance coach with audio and video equipment. And Goodnight tells us that this framing of discourse within debate as hidden or secret to the public eye fuels this notion of exposure, giving rise to the energy that further attempts to infiltrate a given space, particularly within debate, giving rise to white supremacist ideologies trying to expose us. And technology, their affordances have granted us higher competition, deeper discussions, while risking the rise of those who live within this space, because debate has been understood and framed as a training ground, a place where wars are won and lost, 10 seconds of speech, and a place where activism is tested. And yet, the physical space was once influenced by technology and now acts dependent upon its ease of access. When great debates occurred in person, cameras were considered a blessing, an instance of the work of debater to be recognized and valued. But now, the cameras and the microphones act as a demise as they refuel a right-wing influence. And COVID has changed the game, forcing cameras and microphones to carry our existence into an unknown future, a future where those who govern the activity now govern us, and as we must use technology to make a living, a place in advance on our virtual selves, making the digital space feel impossible to those who make it possible. As the blend of technology and performance through COVID forced a new trajectory in delivery, allowing teams to use virtual backgrounds, more sound effects, and the aptitude power of a blank screen to fuel their arguments. At the same time, the problem presented by cameras and microphones within in-person grounds was glossed over, ignored like the experiences prior to 2000. Without any sense of coherence, the resource gap was expanded and the presence of surveillance increased exponentially. Without the coherence, many tournaments that moved online had no mention of recording policies, and the few that did drop the ball, they overestimated the degree of moral commonality held by the community. Students who already risked risk their lives by arguing for survival strategies now face a higher risk against their digital lives. Because the digital ontic is all-encompassing and mimics the social, meaning those demonized and slain in person are forever relegated to a state of domination digitally. The fact that data never dies, while debaters do, makes it far too easy for digital violence to permeate and inform the material world in which we attempt to operate. Our discourse was once used to articulate an individual, now is being used to weaponize and demonize a profile. Label one is expendable and locatable. When the Association for Black Argumentation Professionals released their recommended recording policy for public use, few tournaments used it, claiming it was too limiting, and it said that the future of debate demanded the archive of our triumph against this pandemic. But the only triumph that we were recording was the triumph of white supremacist ideals within the white psyche, demanding that we provide them more and more black debaters and more black scholarship to consume itself. The question is, how the fuck do we reckon with this irreconcilability? Rewinding the tapes of this argument, it's clear that the white psyche is once again trying to prepare for its next meal, sitting anxiously at the computer table, waiting for the latest black debater to be offered to them on digital platter. And because debate and technology and debate is used maliciously, allowing any individual to craft another through the rhetoric attached to their digital image is inherently violent. Feister says that if we shift more to into civil inattention, then the possibilities of a rich common culture woven out of the threads of diverse people, dead-ended, instrumentalized, atomized, and marketized relations. This is the presence of debate, a world in which we have forced ourselves to be dependent on technology, which allows us to have certain moments of inattention where we are able to direct our where we are able to direct our attention to particular aspects of an individual or a scholarship in which we prefer. The one who holds the camera is the one who holds the power, because they are able to determine what a subject looks like digitally. This is corresponding to the past research in which we have conducted, where the slave ships carried bodies in state of non-ontology. The camera is now able to act as a slave ship. The plagues that rampage the caretakers of land. The microphone acts as the plague, and the presence of black blood on debate's hands is irreconcilable, and yet we continually feel the desire to record that death and the killing of black survivability. Turn to those who govern us, who should point your soiled fingers, stick the middle one in the air, and hold a whip with the other. Start the revolution and keep a foot in the mud. Make sure that your scholarship is covered in the blood of your enemies, whoever you may define, to describe the perils of debating for your life, all in the face of an expanding right. My question is, how do we not see this coming? How did we not reconcile the fact that our past is violent, that there is no way for us to assume that any recording doesn't get leaked? The question of what do we do next is simple. We sit in the void of trying to understand the distinctions between digital selves and non-digital selves, considering our rhetoric, how it implicates our digital production of sociality. I'm ready for cross-X.